Do you believe that everyone has a story? Do you want to know about the passions and the stories that drive people to do the things that they do? Maybe you have a vision that intrigues you and you want a little inspiration. If you want to learn about the interesting journeys that people are taking, then you've come to the right place. Get ready to be informed and amused in all aspects of life and the crazy places it takes us. Hot Water 911 brings you Going Home with Tony. And now, here is your host, Tony Scimeca. Welcome to the Going Home with Tony show. Normally you'd hear Tony Scimeca, the host of the Going Home with Tony show, take over at this point, but we're doing something a little bit different. We're kind of switching it up, and so his co-host, Claudia Scimeca, that's me, is going to be doing an interview of Tony Scimeca. And we're going to be talking today with Tony about his recent trip to Haiti. It made a powerful impact on him, and as a result, I thought that maybe our listening audience would really want to hear about his experiences and listen to what Tony has to say about what he learned there. And so typically I'll do a bio about our guests, and it's kind of an odd thing to be doing a bio about my husband, but Tony Scimeca is the owner and founder of two Chicago-based companies, Design Temperature and Hot Water 911. He is also the host of the Going Home with Tony show. And is there anything else that you would like to add, Tony?
The proud husband of Claudia.
Oh, that would be me.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm the
Which
proud
is
one.
probably, without question, my greatest accomplishment ever. How did I do?
Well, I paid you to say that the check is in the mail.
Yeah, well, I heard that before. Okay. How
And
are you?
I'm good. And so
Thank you for having me to my show. That really, I appreciate that.
And I'm humbled because I have to say you are such a fabulous host for the Going Home with Tony show. I just kind of pitch in occasionally that this is kind of a challenge. I have a pair of big shoes to fill here.
And smelly also, I might add.
But they're cute shoes. So. And so how I would like to do this is I would like to take this conversational journey, if you will, of your Haiti experience as chronologically as possible. And so I would like to start at the beginning. So if you would first tell us about that moment that you were asked to go to Haiti on this mission trip.
Well, for anybody who knows me, knows that Tony sometimes doesn't thoroughly analyze everything before Tony reacts.
Impetuous, you would say?
It's a good word.
Mm-hmm. Impulsive?
I don't know how to spell it, but I'll go with that. So your dear brother, my dear brother-in-law, Dr. Eric Anderson, who's been going to Haiti for 17 to 20 years now and other locations throughout Central America and the Caribbean, and medical mission trips. Eric is a physician in Monroe, Wisconsin, and he has a family practitioner practice. And part of his giving back and paying it forward is he goes to Haiti on these mission trips, and they have always intrigued me. And he has also been accompanied with Susan, your sister, my sister-in-law, who's also a physician. She's an ophthalmologist. And even Susan's husband, Jeff, who is an infectious disease doctor. So between Claudia being a nurse dentist, Eric a physician, Susan a physician, Jeff a physician, Eric's wife being a nurse also, and Kirsten being a nurse. Of course, the family needed a token plumber, so
every family needs a token plumber.
Here I am. So when Eric had asked me would I like to go, I was just tickled because I had always wanted to go, but I never wanted to push myself and invite myself. And so I just thought it was one of those things that if it happens, it happens. And when it does, it will. And Que sera, sera. Well, the day came, and Eric, in his very serious way, called me and said, "Would you like to go?" So it took me about 3 seconds. I said, "You kidding me? Of course." So that's what the precursor was to our trip. But there's actually another story that we'll tell somewhere else in the interview about Eric's motivation in inviting me to go.
Sure, right. And I remember because I was with you when you told me, when after you had gotten the phone call, and you were actually a little bit emotional. So this was actually a really important thing, and I'm really glad that you didn't have a lot of time to think about it, because I know that as we progressed on this preparation part of the journey, there were times that you were thinking, oh, did I make the right decision? But I'm really glad that you are impetuous and impulsive, and that there was no question that to your heart that you had to say yes. And that was the response that I remember seeing when you told me that Eric had asked you. You were very touched and a little bit emotional about it. So
I
I'm
was.
yeah. So I'm really
Yeah.
glad that you didn't have time to be like logical about it and say, "Oh, maybe this is not going to work," because I think it ended up being really good. So
Yes, irresponsible and impulsive are my target responses, and in keeping with that, I did accept his most generous invitation.
and it's one of your more loving qualities. So in talk to your last minute preparations. So before you go to a place like Haiti, if you've never been there before, there are some concerns about making sure that you're prepared, whether it be in regards to your health and or the kinds of foods you're going to eat and things. So um, you and I did a couple of last minute running around to local health food stores and talk about that.
Well, in part of my impulsivity, I had there was no time to get the proper
Immunizations.
immunizations.
I can say it.
I can't say it and I can't spell it, and furthermore, I didn't get any.
Thank goodness one of us knows.
Yeah, so malaria and typhoid, and what are the other things
He-
that
hepatitis. Hmm.
hepatitis?
But you did get the diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus shot.
Well, yeah, so I did get that, and I I figured, you know, um, whatever is going to come my way, I'll figure it out as I go along. I'm with Eric; he's a physician, so at least I had a good date
We hoped.
that could take care of me. Went to a health food store in Egg Harbor,
Greens and grains.
Greens and Grains, and loaded up in um, little health food
Probiotics.
bars, probiotics, and charcoal, and all kinds of things that were
The just in
uh,
case
the
factor.
just in case factor, and kind of like, I mean, it was only maybe about a week's worth of preparation.
Hmm.
So on a Sunday morning, I don't know, was it like October 18th or so, or
Hmm.
October 11th? I found myself driving into O'Hare Airport at around 6 o'clock in the morning, and we uh, met at your sister's house and had some light chit chat and
Light
this
food
light food, and this thing then
became
started
real.
really resonating with me that wow, I'm really doing this, and
There's no
never done
backing
anything
out
like that
now.
before. There's no backing out now.
So, so you go to the airport, and you had a pretty interesting airport experience when you arrived in Haiti. So your experience in
Yeah,
at
I
the
don't
airport here
know.
was not
Yeah, I
was
don't know
pretty
exactly how much I should speak to that,
okay.
um,
That's fine.
because I do want to return. But let me just say that the Haitian customs people are just great people,
They are,
and they will help you out any which way they can.
and most of the people in Haiti are that way.
Oh my gosh. One of the things that I was really keen on, and you and I had talked about before the trip, is I knew there was a lot of poverty. I knew there was a lot of hardship. I didn't know how much joy there was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to focus on my observation of the level of joy. And these are people that live on less than $1,000 a year, and they drive little tiny motor scooters. We had seen up to 4 people on a motor scooter.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
it
didn't even know
started to
that.
become a thing,
To
and
count how many people
to
would be
count how
in it?
many
Mm-hmm.
people. And I think there was one occasion, either we saw it or we heard about it, that there was 5 people on a little tiny motor scooter.
Wow.
And the level of generosity in that country is amazing. The people that have so little are willing to give you whatever they have.
And we talked with our friend Melody Fletcher of Deliberate Receiving in regards to creating joy in our life and eliminating suffering. And that was something that you were interested in finding out because here we are a country that had, while we certainly have areas of poverty, and we have certainly a large group of people in the United States who suffer from low income and from poverty status. For the most part, the people here don't want for much, and yet we suffer. We are depressed. We're unhappy. We're seeking more. We're not happy with what we've got. And you and I did talk about one of the observations that you were intent on making was going to Haiti and knowing that it's just racked in poverty to see what their happiness level was, and you were really impressed.
I was. The ride from Port-au-Prince to where we stayed, which was this kind of like a 1960s quasi-commune Peace Corps place called HAF, and it stood for the Haitian American Friendship Foundation. It's been around for about 40 years or so, and it's a Christian-based organization that operates a school and a free clinic and an ag program for farmers. And it's this really, no pun intended, grassroots organization. The ride from Port-au-Prince to HAF, which is between the towns of Bohawk and Pigeon, it's about a 4.5 hour ride. It's about 50 miles.
Hmm.
The first 40 miles took about an hour and a half. The last 10 miles took about 2.5 hours.
Wow. Why is
And
that?
the roads were just washouts and switchbacks. And,
Are you in the mountains?
you're in the mountains, not too high, maybe 3,000 feet, but
High
uh,
enough.
you could see where, cars have rolled off the side and, just everything that you could imagine a third world nation looking like. That's what it did look like. And so by the time we finally pulled into the town, and my pancreas now got relocated to my kidneys, and so Eric had to
So
do
there were
some minor
switchbacks. There
surgery.
were switchbacks from within as well.
Yes, I was switching back all over the place. And the first day after we arrived, we went to this small little village to start seeing patients. And my responsibility was to pass out reading glasses. So before we had left, Susan, your sister, gave us 200 pairs of reading glasses, and she gave me a quick in-service on how to fit people for reading
So you
glasses.
now are certified reading
I am a
glass.
certified
Yeah,
optometrist,
right.
only in foreign countries.
Yeah.
And so, just as another kind of crazy thing that I didn't plan, when we were at the airport, I had bought 2 large bags of lollipops.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll just give them away to the kids or something. So when I would see my patients, I would
Isn't that funny
have
for you to think about
it
saying to your
is,
patients?
yeah. I mean, I could be sued in most states just for saying that. I had an interpreter, and I have to remember my French now, so I would say, how do you say good?
Bon,
Bon. And then
très bon.
I say très bon,
Hmm.
and they say no très bon. I said, oh, okay, wait. So I tried different pair of glasses. They say bon. I said no très bon. They say no. So I tried another pair of glasses. I finally got the très bon,
Très
and
bon.
I said voila, and they would get a free lollipop with their pair of glasses.
Pretty cute.
And by
That
the
probably made their
time,
day.
oh, it was, I mean, I'm giving lollipops to like 80-year-old people. And by the time I passed out about 100, I saw about 100 patients that day. I had a lot of appointments. It was as if there was no language barrier
Hmm.
and we just had to communicate
Human communication.
smiles
Hmm.
and just signs of affection.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, it was, and you know my personality that I love to play with people,
Hmm.
and they were so lovable.
And receptive.
Yeah, so
Let's walk back a little bit. We kind of jumped forward in some into your experience, but I kind of want to know, and I think the audience would want to know what some of your first thoughts were when you landed in Port-au-Prince. So that's where the plane lands, and so now you've landed in this country that you've never been to before. Did you spend enough time in Port-au-Prince to before the car came to, or the Jeep or whatever it was that came to transport you, to get a feel for the city there?
well, it was kind of like one of these crazy, chaotic airport scenes. I kept on thinking of the movie Billy Hayes was in the movie
Midnight
Midnight
Express. I don't
Express.
know if
Yeah,
that was a good movie for you to be thinking about.
it probably wasn't, but and I had been in the Dominican Republic 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and it shares a border with Haiti. So I kind of had a sort of a understanding of that Caribbean
Yes,
kind of culture.
lifestyle. Hmm.
Yeah, and so when we landed at the airport, it was this crazy, hot, humid, uh, just chaotic situation. And so our driver and our interpreter, Eleazar, and what was the name of the other interpreter?
Dualno? Yeah,
Dualno,
right.
pick us up. Eric knew the interpreter, and in Eric's normal generosity, let's go eat, let's go feed the people.
Hmm.
And so we went to a little airport snack shop. Well, of course, Eric and the other three guys are in the snack shop. Now I have to go out and, be with the people. So there was a lot of street life hanging out.
Hmm.
And so, of course, I'm the only white guy within 100 miles. I'm pretty easily recognizable as not being a Haitian. So
You think so?
I start hanging out with the Haitian guys, and I start talking about Michael Jordan because I figure the guy's like an international iconic
Hmm.
image.
Hmm. A star.
And one guy pulls out a keychain, and what is it? It's that iconic image of Michael Jordan
Oh, that's funny.
stuffing the
Oh,
basketball.
that's funny.
Yeah, so we just immediately started connecting on that level. So we left those shortly thereafter, and for our 4-hour expedition into the hinterland.
Do they drive? This is a silly question, but do they drive on the same side of the street that we do, or are they on the other side?
Haitians drive on any side of the
Oh,
street
wherever they
at
want
any
to.
time,
Okay.
anywhere they want to, because there's the thought of law and order is really optional.
It's a suggestion.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
but they know they drive as we do in America, not like they do in England. But to say that they drive like American is a very loose statement.
And when you were making this 4-hour drive and it's 50 miles, were there lots of animals that were along the road that you had to wait for them crossing? I mean, is it very once you got out of Port-au-Prince, was it very rural with goats going around and that kind of thing, or
It was like a scene out of Fiddler on the Roof. You're stopped by a shepherd herding goats, a farmer leading an oxen, because that's what they plow with,
Sure.
oxen, no tractors. So yes, there was a tremendous amount of goats seem to be the prevailing animal, pigs. So people would lash a pig to their motor scooter to bring it to market.
Hmm.
So the
And
uh,
goats probably serve many purposes. They get milk from goats, they
right,
get meat from goats, so they're probably multi-purpose
yes,
pets, if
and
you will.
they're voracious eaters.
Sure.
So what you'll see is goats tied up to trees, and then every day they just move the rope to another tree, and that's how they feed their goats every day.
Now, we know just historically that in Haiti there was a lot of deforestation. Were you impacted by that in your ride in? Did you notice the barrenness of the land, or
Well,
what did?
Eric brought it to my attention that I don't know how many years ago, 100 years ago,
Hmm.
whatever, Haiti was like the emerald jewel of the Caribbean because it had tremendous mahogany
Yes, mahogany was the
forests,
big one.
and it's gone.
Hmm.
So, and then the second level of deforestation was the production of charcoal, where they'll take trees, cut them up, and then they'll slowly smolder them so they dry the wood out until it becomes charcoal. And then you'll see these large, probably made out of plastic, but huge bags, 6 feet tall, 2 feet in diameter, sitting alongside the road, waiting for the pickup company to pick up the bag of charcoal. And they could have literally hundreds of bags on the truck with 10 guys laying on top of the bags. And then the guys go flying off when the truck hits a 6 foot crevasse and they lose half the guys. So I mean the level of risk that
Right.
these guys take on every day,
They don't have OSHA.
it's they don't have OSHA.
And one of the things that I think maybe our listeners should be aware of, and perhaps they know about this already, is one of the issues. Speaking of charcoal, one of the health issues that Haitians experience is our respiratory issues based on their primitive way of cooking, so that they use wood and charcoal within their homes to cook and are breathing in the fumes from these materials, creating some respiratory issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, respiratory issues are huge. Um, Hypertension
Mm-hmm.
is probably their largest cause of chronic illness. A lot of it is hereditary,
Mm-hmm.
some of it's dietary, but they are under a lot of stress. So, one of our interpreters said, life in Haiti happens by accident.
Mm-hmm.
It's not planned.
So you touched a little bit about HAF, HAFF, and for our listeners, if you want to find out more about HAF, you can go to www.haf.org. That's HAF as in Frank, F as in Frank.org. Tell us a little bit about HAF. It is a Christian-based organization, been there around 40 years. They offer a free school, a free clinic. What is their mission? What is their motivation?
Well, I don't know enough to speak specifically, but I can tell you what I observed.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's about 450 kids in the school.
Mm-hmm.
They give the kids one meal a day,
Which might be their
the
only meal?
only meal, right? They have 60 employees. They operate a free clinic, and they do that on an annual budget of about $260,000 a year.
Wow,
Nothing goes to waste.
I'm sure.
So the minute we hit camp, the director and his wife weren't there. So when we were meeting at the bunkhouse, some of the interpreters and Eric and myself, they had told me that their large diesel generator went down a few weeks ago. So immediately I started thinking, diesel
I
generator.
can do that.
I can do that.
Heck with medical stuff. I know generators.
So it turned out that that was a kind of an interesting segment of my trip was that I became the Bob Vila of half and Haiti.
Well, I think actually Bob Vila would choose to emulate you at this point. Yeah. Tell a little. We're going to take a break in a minute here, but tell us a little bit about that experience because the connection that you made with the United States actually to get that generator going.
Oh yeah, it was a huge diesel generator. Don't have a lot of diesel generator experience. Just couldn't get it to start. They had a real cheap little voltmeter there that barely worked, and my first attempt, I got stung by a bunch of wasps that were in. So I was, running like a sissy down the road, taking all my clothes off. I must have
That
got
probably scared people.
stung a dozen times. It did. They said, "Hey, listen, we can live without the power. Put your clothes back on." And so I couldn't get it running. And in talking to Eric, I said, "Boy, I sure wish I had my friends from Total Energy on the phone from De Pere, Wisconsin. They would know what to do." And he said, "Give them a call." And I said, "Can we get an outside line here?" And we figured out somebody had a cell phone with enough prepaid minutes. So I called De Pere, Wisconsin, Total Energy, and talked to their technician, and the guy said 49p. I said, "What's 49p?" He said, "Wire 49p. It might be 49N, but I think it's 49p." And I said, "Does P stand for power?" And he said, "Yep." I said, he said, "Put power back on 49p." So I went back there, and sure enough, I didn't have power. I restored power, changed a fuse, and that engine roared,
Mm.
and the lights came
Oh
on,
my
whatever
gosh, there
lights
must have
they
been a
had.
cheer throughout the whole half.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
It was just one of those moments that, and I was
Yeah.
telling Eric, I said, it's really funny that this happened because when I was in Santo Domingo back in the 80s, I always had this vision of going back and actually helping the people with mechanical things.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got detoured for the last
Yeah.
35
And
years.
and maybe you took a left turn in the country, but
Yep.
you're kind of on the
Yeah,
continent anywhere or the land
exactly.
mass anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a cool story. All right, well, we're going to take a little bit of a break to do announcements here. Just as a reminder, you can find pretty much everything you want to know about Going Home with Tony on our website. That is www.goinghomewithtony.com. This includes how to connect with us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, where we post all of our updates and podcasts. And as usual, we have a fabulous show coming up on Thursday, November 26th. It's the day that we celebrate Thanksgiving in the United States. In honor of this wonderful celebration, Going Home with Tony is honored to talk with our guest, Inga Witcher, of the Wisconsin Public Television show Around the Farm Table. Inga has invited Tony and I to her farm in Osseo, Wisconsin, to get a feel for fall harvest, for the bounty of farm food, and what it's like for this young woman to run her own dairy farm. We're thankful for Inga's kind invitation to spend a day on the farm, and we are thrilled to share our experience with you on Thanksgiving evening. So tune in at 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time for a Thanksgiving celebration. And you can find out more about Inga Witcher and her farm at www.aroundthefarmtable.com.
And if nobody hears me on that show, that just means Claudia did such a good job. She got my job and I'm now replaced.
You've retired.
Yeah, no, I got bounced.
I don't think that'll ever happen. Actually doing this makes me really even more, even though I appreciate you so much already, this really makes me appreciate you more. So let's talk a little bit about some fun things. Let's talk
Mhm.
about your accommodations. Tell us what your accommodations were like.
Well, it
Was
was
it
a
the
little.
Hilton?
It was the Hilton without the H. It was the
Hilton.
Hanoi Hilton, like in Vietnam.
That's right.
It was everything you could expect, like this cement building, a bunkhouse with a tin roof.
Indoor plumbing?
Indoor plumbing is coming. Well, actually, I should say plumbing is still coming. So the facility was outside. The shower was a barrel of water that would hopefully heat up during the day. that when you took your shower in the morning, you could shower in less than 2 gallons of water.
Because it was so cold.
It was so cold. Um, the the mosquito nets kept falling down in your face.
Did you need them? Are there a lot
Um,
of mosquitoes there?
Actually, there wasn't at this point because they had been really dry
Ah,
and they weren't getting the normal hurricanes that they get in the fall. So I have to say that there really wasn't that many mosquitoes. But there was another little creepy
yes.
crawly thing that we
I was
ran
going to
into.
ask you about your friend. You got friendly with another creepy crawly critter.
Yes, a hairy one, as a matter of fact. Um, your dear brother and
He is dear.
my dear brother-in-law um, really wanted me to see a tarantula up close.
Wanted to share the tarantula love.
Yeah. So when he was asking our interpreters to help us find a tarantula, I kind of said, you can just Google one. It's
I can find a Google image.
Yeah, I'm really good with that, but no, we had to go find one. So we went out into the jungle, and evidently tarantulas bore about a 2 inch hole or 1 inch hole, depending on the size of the tarantula. And then you shine a light down there, and you take your water bottle and you pour a little water, get it moving around, and then you take a stick and you push it in the ground next to the hole so he gets a little uncomfortable, and then
I get
up
uncomfortable when people poke sticks around too.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
And so did he come out?
he came out and he was probably about 3 inches in diameter, like a tennis ball.
That's kind of big for my taste for spiders.
And he was very hairy, and I thought, okay, well,
But they're not aggressive, right?
just the thought of
Mm-hmm.
a tarantula,
Yeah, right.
um, I bypass the he's not aggressive thing, and I go right into the okay, I'm good. That's off my bucket list.
Was it ever really on it?
Yeah, it wasn't until then. So then we go back to the bunkhouse, and about an hour later, Eric, in his very serious voice, says, "Tony, would you come in here, please?" And I say, "Okay." And there's a tarantula in our room about the size of um, mm, like a cantaloupe.
Wow. I would have freaked out.
And I said, "It's your fault, Eric. You had to mess with the
You
tarantula.
disturbed the tarantula gods.
You got bad tarantula juju
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and the tarantula gods have brought him to us.
So what did you
And
do with it?
well, I put a wicker basket over him, and I wanted to try to slide him out of the room, but tarantulas evidently are very soft and pliable.
Mm-hmm.
So he got out from underneath
Oh,
the
really?
basket. Yeah, and then everybody came into our room, and now it became,
A
kind of
thing.
a bad thing for the tarantula, and it really kind of upset Eric because the
He didn't intend
tarantula,
for it to have to
yeah, he
meet
didn't
its
make
end.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Now, when you went to sleep that night, was that a little unnerving, even though you knew that it was not there any longer? Now that you knew that they possibly could get in your room, wouldn't that be? I don't think I'd sleep again. I think I'd sleep with my eyes open.
well, you said when we went to sleep, so that would be the assumption that
That
I
your eyes are
slept.
closed.
Yeah, I didn't get much sleep that night.
No. Yeah,
Right. And they say the bite is only about as bad as a wasp or a bee.
yeah. But I don't want to be
But
the test victim.
it's the problem is that when you wake up and you see the tarantula walking on your chest, it's the cardiac heart attack that you have because of the
Right,
tarantula.
exactly.
I survived the bite. I didn't survive
But I
the.
had a heart attack with it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. We know already that you were the reading glasses practitioner, and you were successful in that. We know that you fixed the generator, and I'm sure you were a hero. What are some of the other things that you did during your week stay in Haiti?
Oh, I felt like I was back at my mom's apartment. There was this entire list of things to
The
do.
to-do list?
The to-do list. I fixed another small portable generator. I fixed a brush cutting lawnmower. ceiling fans, light bulb fixtures. I mean, anything you touch there needs some attention. So the lack of work is non-existent.
Yes, there's always something to do.
Right. There was
But that
always
really
some.
fits your personality quite well because you always like to be very productive. So it
Yeah,
probably felt really good to be so useful there.
it was. And as far as appreciation goes, oh my gosh, you couldn't have asked for more genuine, appreciative people that, one of the things I wanted to do was just kind of walk around the town and see what was, kind of like what goes on in the town that's outside of half.
What's the name of that town?
Well, I guess Bohawk,
Okay.
because we had to walk to Pigeon. So I guess Bohawk would be the town. And I see this really tall, good-looking man. He was from Amsterdam, and he must have been 7 feet tall. And he was walking with two little Haitian girls that were like 3 feet tall, and his hands were down to his knees, and their hands were above their head, and
What a funny image.
he had both index fingers held by each one of these two little girls' hands, and they could barely get their hands around his index finger. And the most gentle of giants you could ever imagine.
Hmm.
And of course, I had to interview him and struck up a conversation. And he was one of the administrators in an orphanage called Matthew 28. And
That's located there.
it's located right next to Half, practically. And so I wanted to go see the orphanage the next day, and um, everybody was gone because the American missionaries that came there left. And when the missionaries leave, they have to cart the kids off to a place where they can be chaperoned.
Huh.
And as I was talking to one of our interpreters about the orphanage, one of the things that orphanages run into there is they can't be over, um, they can't coddle these kids because they're not able to meld back into Haitian culture when they're
If they've been too cared for or
too cared for. I mean,
hmm that's
I mean,
kind of sad,
it's
huh?
not that they abuse them,
No, no.
but they just can't
They
be
want
too.
them to face reality.
And I just thought to myself, what a cruel world
Hmm.
that these people and a third of the Haitian economy is American missionaries bringing money into the country.
Hmm.
And when you get to the airport in Miami, you'll see throngs of people with T-shirts that were designed for that trip. And they typically will have a church name or a scripture,
Hmm.
uh, a verse on there. And it's like it's for the purpose of keeping everybody in the same group. Somebody referred to it as herding cats
Hmm.
and to keep the people together. And these people just go down there and they're so selfless. They go so many times.
Hmm.
They pay their own way. And somebody had mentioned to me, I don't know if it was in the stateside or down there, but um, are we doing them a disservice
Hmm.
by them um, almost adjusting their
Culture.
to this
Hmm.
assistance?
Hmm.
But then I thought to myself, but they may die
If we
without it.
didn't.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
It's a very deep philosophical question because that's it. It's conform to some of our standards, perhaps some religious belief systems, and you'll have food and shelter and education, or don't and risk earlier death, I guess, huh?
right. Yeah, I mean, the situation is so critical that you would see women, but they don't see it as critical. They just see it as everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
That they would be walking with a 5 gallon pail of water
Mm-hmm.
on their head perfectly balanced, not holding it, not spilling a drop,
Yeah.
and this is everyday life.
Right.
And I
It's
think
it's
one of
their it's their activity every day. They have to go down and get the water, and there's no question about it.
right, and you'll never appreciate those natural resources. You'll never stop squandering
Hmm.
those natural resources until you see what life is like
When you
without
don't
them.
have them,
You don't
right?
have them.
Right. But then we come back, and you and I have talked about this. You come back, you're moved by this, and you want to make, and understandably so, you want to make changes in your life that are reflective of the lessons that you've learned. And then we come back to reality, and we get drawn in and sucked into day-to-day trivia and minutia and work-related things. And not that you will ever forget your experience in Haiti, um, but life goes on, and we temporarily squander the water
Right.
as a metaphor for what happens after you've done this. Well, tell us about the school that is run by half, and also then about the school that you learned of that's nearby, about a mile
Oh
away.
yeah, UCI, the university. Um, well, half is this, really phenomenal place that they teach all these kids. They have give them a meal every day, and there's no lights in the class.
Hmm,
And a lot of the kids that we talked to when we were passing out glasses were having reading problems. Of course, they can't see
sure,
the blackboard.
sure.
So one of the things that I put out there that if half can stay in existence, which is questionable because they're actually overspending their budget by almost $10,000 a month. So they're in a major fundraising campaign to just stay alive.
Hmm.
Um, and if they can stay alive, Eric and I are going to go back and install low voltage lighting and low voltage ceiling fans in all the classrooms.
Hmm.
So something as simple as LED lights could make a
Could change
tremendous.
their life.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be able to see the blackboard. And these kids show up in school with perfectly pressed clothes.
Hmm. They take it
Beautiful.
seriously.
Oh my gosh. There was this one kid, I didn't meet him, but they told me about him. He gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He walks through trails and jungles in the dark, takes off all his clothes, puts them on his head, traverses a swift moving river,
Hmm.
puts his clothes back on. He walks for 3 hours to get to school.
Well, that's dedication.
And at 11:30 in the morning, school's only from 8 till 11:30.
Because there are chores to be done, probably. Hmm?
And it gets hot,
Yeah.
so I mean, there's certain limitations to anything, and that's weather's one of them. And then he repeats that whole process
Wow.
in the afternoon. So he's walking 6 hours a day on one meal, and he only gets one pair of shoes for the whole year.
Hmm.
And that to me was just an example of their pure determination to
And
succeed.
how important, right? And then and also concomitantly how important education is to them. I mean, maybe they look at education as their possible way out, or even if it's not their way out, perhaps they're looking at education as the means to change things in Haiti. So even if they choose to stay, they're probably thinking that with an education under their belt, they might be able to elicit change or create change such that it would help their families and help their
No
loved
question about
ones.
it. I mean, that's one of the things I also wanted to study was the family structure,
Hmm.
and it is really alive and well. They do have their share of domestic violence. Um,
Do they?
yeah, what they don't have is there's not a lot of drinking,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no smoking.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, so those are some of the vices that, the United States has every day, and they really don't deal with that. And I think part of it is that life is so difficult they don't have the latitude to have those bad habits.
Right, right, right. And it sounds like, without having been there, it sounds like they handle stress much differently than we do. Because going back to our previous conversation earlier in the show, you had expressed that one of your missions, if you will, was to assess what their level of happiness, what this culture's level of happiness was, given their abject poverty, and you were incredibly surprised and amazed to see that they are really happy. So,
On
the
less than $1,000 a year.
right. So the way that they handle stress or the way that they perceive stress is so much different than the way that we do here as a culture in the United
Well,
States.
think about it. With all the possessions that we have, now we have the responsibility of maintaining them.
Right.
So big houses, cars, appliances, all the water
Right.
heaters.
Right. Oh, those darn water heaters. What do you think the future of HAF is? Again, that stands for Haitian American Friendship Foundation. What is your gut feeling on their future
Oh my gosh, it would be impossible for me to say.
based on one visit, huh?
Yeah, based on one visit and not knowing all the other financial uh, grants and donations that they get. There was this like it was like walking into the Emerald City in the Wizard of Oz.
Tell us about that place. That's
We
cool.
went for a walk one day, and there's this university that's only 4 years old. I think it's called oh, I'm going to get it wrong. United Christian Institution or something. UCI
Mm-hmm.
is the acronym. And it was founded by a former teacher of half, a Haitian guy named Jean Jean.
Mm-hmm.
And he married an American woman who was a missionary at half. And right around 2009, I think the earthquake was, um, they were able to raise money from a Christian based church in California, and they built this university in 4 years, and it is off the charts unbelievable. Now, it's not like what we would picture a university in the United States looking
Mm-hmm.
like. I mean, it was maybe sitting on about 15 acres, used to be a sugar cane plantation. And so the buildings are maybe 2 or 3 stories, very much built in that Caribbean style, all cement, but very, very nice, very clean.
Modern.
Yeah, and they have a medical school, an ag school. Um, they have they're starting their clinic. It's probably open by now, and it was such a um, divergence from all the other, poverty that I seen there. Oh,
Right.
they have a school of theology.
Mm-hmm.
So the hope is education. I
Mm-hmm.
know it sounds awfully sophomoric because we always say, it's education, education, but I think in Haiti's situation, it really is because the education not only gives Haitian kids training where they can create jobs and create economy, it also makes a lateral shift in their consciousness that life doesn't have to just be about survival.
Right.
Life can be about thriving
Right.
and moving forward. And I
Right.
think that's what they're getting there.
Right, right. And I really think that that is an important lesson for them. I think that's a growth lesson. And when you were talking about the education, that they put a lot of emphasis on education, in the States we think of education as majoring in something and then doing a life work based on that major, in perfect world. But I think for you, what you're saying in Haiti, sorry, that education can be as simple as doing, as you said, agricultural teaching, or teaching women how to raise goats, or teaching women how to sew, or teaching men how to do different things. How, you know, do things like fixing generators and things. So education is a term that's probably used a little bit differently, but that kind of education can probably change their life.
But then, ironically, and we talked about
Hmm.
this, then in all change, something is gained,
Right,
but then something's
right.
lost. And
Culturally, perhaps,
the
or whatever.
road
Right,
that goes from Port-au-Prince to the
right.
northern side of the country, it falls short of Bohawk by about maybe 10 miles. Well, the next 2 years, that road is going to be finished all the way to the highway.
And that's going to change
So
everything.
that 4 hour car ride from Port-au-Prince to Bohawk is going to be cut down to about an hour, hour and
Wow.
a half.
And that will change.
And then what will happen is then all the um, uh, illness of big city life will come
Mm-hmm.
out to the countryside.
They'll have access.
Yeah, they'll have
Mm-hmm.
access, but you can't tell the people that
No.
this is not a good thing
Right. And
because
we
they're going to
shouldn't
get
have to.
water.
And sharing of cultures is not a bad thing necessarily. But you're right, there are some risks involved in that as well. I want to wind down. We have just a little bit of time left, and I have a couple of questions that I want to ask. One is, would you go back?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Eric and I are going to have to start talking about our commitment to lighting and fans. So that's going to be something that we'd look to do in 2016.
Okay.
And if it's not at half,
Maybe it'll be at
there's,
UCI.
yeah, well, I don't think UCI really needs Tony very much.
Oh, everybody
I
needs Tony.
No, I think they're doing just fine without him.
Well, I think that that's probably not true. But in since you saying that you would go back, what would you do differently, or would you do everything the same? Now that you know
Hmm.
what Haiti is like and what their needs are and what you can contribute, would you do anything differently, or would you basically do it the same?
I would buy more lollipops. I ran out of lollipops, and it seemed like
You know
that
you
was.
are speaking to a retired dentist, right?
I know, and they don't have a lot of processed sugar in their diet, so I'm sure tooth decay is probably low on their
Yeah,
list of problems. But
do they have a dentist there?
um,
Was there one there at the time you were
no,
there?
I
Oh,
mean the people that run the clinic are nurses.
yeah.
So when Dr.
When
Eric, who is now
doctors
the only physician
that
that
comes,
half has, and he comes twice a year,
yeah.
so there is a hospital. We did go visit the hospital in Pigeon, and when I say hospital,
Is that there air quotes
although
around that?
yeah, it's one of the things I did want to say in closing is I did get a good case of survivor's guilt, so I'm dealing with that, but I don't want to just let that experience go
Right.
without following up on. So I
Which
do.
I think can alleviate some of that survivor guilt feeling because I think survivor's guilt it looks for some kind of relief. And if you are able to go back again, I think that you'll feel more, more useful,
Sure.
more like you're giving.
It
Uh,
was the best, worst experience I ever had.
I know I've heard you say that to different people. Well, I love hearing the story. A lot of the stories I've heard before, but actually today, in doing a formal interview, I learned a couple of more things. You're a great person to interview.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Claudia. And I think from here on out, I'll be your sidekick.
I don't think that'll happen, but thank you very much. And remember to our audience that on November 26th, we will be broadcasting a show that is coming from Inga Witcher's farm in Osseo, Wisconsin. She is the star of Around the Farm Table on Wisconsin Public Television, and we're excited to be hosted by her, and it should be a good Thanksgiving show. And everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And Tony, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.